What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 674 of the Smark Moment Smack Talk Hot Tags of the Week podcast. We are going to be breaking down everything that happened in the world of pro wrestling that we feel like talking about from the past few days since the last Hot Tags edition. Thank you for joining us. I am your host, as always, Tony Mango, joined as always by Robert E. Felice.
Hey.
And Callum Wiggins.
Hey.
And all the spooky time is out of there. We hope you had a great Halloween. Tell us what you did for Halloween, if you did anything special, in the comments below. And also leave your comments for everything else that you want to talk about from this episode. Make sure that you just chime in on whatever platform you're listening or whatever you want to. If you're on the Discord server, chat it up there. I'm going to try to do something with Marco about some predictions contest stuff going forward. I have to double check some messages that he had sent earlier today about that. Try to get some more interactive stuff on Discord, but whether you're on Facebook, on Twitter, on smarkatmoment.com, or the YouTube channel, let your voices be heard. If you are on YouTube, by the way, double check that you are subscribed, ring that notification bell to get your email alerts for when we go live for whatever things we go live for. Tomorrow, we're going to be going live for the post show immediately following WWE Crown Jewel, so keep that in mind too. And of course, hit the like button on this video and make sure that you click on the join button as well. Get access to the early access content, get access to the Darkcast tier, the Pick Your Poison tier. Thank you to Daniel for signing up for the Darkcast tier recently on Patreon. Same exact thing as on YouTube. And if you want to pick up merchandise, Redbubble and TeePublic, I'm pretty sure are going to be on sale for pretty much the entire rest of the year. Usually around this time frame, it's like I get an email that's like, it's 30% off. And then it'll be like, hey, because it's like November 8th, it's 30% off or something stupid, So now is the best time out of all the time of the year to get any kind of t-shirts or stuff that you want to get on those things. Lots of different products, lots of different designs you could slap on those different products. So if you have any in mind that are not on there for a Mango Tees or Fanboys Anonymous or Smark Out Moment, then just shoot me a message and, I'll try to whip up some kind of a design or something. But the little thanks button is also something to keep in mind. And the super chats too. This next episode that we do live, we're going to test out a feature that's like a goal thing on the super chats, where if we get a certain amount of super chats at a certain like price point or whatever, then we'll do something. So I'm thinking right now, maybe like if we get 10 super chats of like the $2 tier and up, then maybe we'll do an extra episode of something. One idea was that we could do a fantasy booking kind of thing of like throwing in like crown jewel champions of previous years, who would have been like the two world champions against each other, who should have been a crown jewel champion back to the original brand split. Another idea that Rob had tossed out last night, it's this movie, The Unbreakable Bunch, that I had never seen before. It's a bunch of wrestlers and they're like fighting off zombies or something. It looks absolutely terrible, so it might be fun to watch.
We're gonna watch it whether we record it or not.
So that might be a fan outs table or something. Stay tuned tomorrow, and we'll try to figure something out. But we do have hot tags to get into, and we're going to start off with a congratulations to Ruby Soho and Angelo Parker on the birth of Evie, I believe is the name of their daughter. And that's great. It's also, something that's been in a long time coming, that we've known that that's been why they've been out of action. And we always want to congratulate any awesome news like that. So congrats to the happy couple and to the newborn. Awesome news, especially considering some of the other hot tags we have on this week.
Yeah, very happy for them. I wish nothing but health for the baby. And who knows, maybe we see Ruby in the ring again one day, or maybe she's just happy doing life as a mother, but I'm very happy for everybody.
Yep, mazel tov all around.
Let's skip forward 20 years from now and see what Evie does in the ring. And who she's feuding with and all.
Probably Matt Hardy's daughter, who's also named Evie, I believe.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe they can all be coached by Dakota Kai, because she went by Evie for a little bit.
I'm not sure, but I know at least 2 out of those 3 were named after the Pokemon.
Really?
Yeah.
Which show? Dakota. Dakota's obvious.
Dakota and Matt Hardy's baby.
Huh. Well, I like Evie. What's your favorite EV evolution? Everybody, leave a comment below. What are your two favorites?
I like Eevee. Eevee's cute.
Just going to keep
Just
EV
decide.
as is?
You're not going to evolve it.
No, I'm not going to evolve it. No, it's like the Ash Pikachu thing. Not happening.
I'd probably go with Jolteon, I'd imagine.
Jolteon's definitely my favorite. Espeon, number 2. Kind of fighting it out with Umbreon a little bit there. Vaporeon's pretty cool too. Flareon was the first one I got, and it was a complete waste because I had picked Charizard, but I only had a Firestone at the time, and I was a dumb kid, so I was just like, oh, I can evolve it, immediately did it, and then regretted it afterward. But hey, you make mistakes, so. Let's see. Let's bounce to a completely unrelated topic, but yeah, let's talk about one of these kind of bigger ones. Vince McMahon potentially starting his own separate entertainment company is a rumor that's been going around this week, without a whole lot of details about what that might necessarily mean, what it might be called and all this. But immediately the first thing I thought of was he has Alpha Entertainment, and I do not anticipate that he is going to get into the pro wrestling side of things, but if he did, it would be pretty damn hilarious if it was Alpha Entertainment Wrestling and it was AEW. But I think that this is going to be, if anything, and I do think that there is a chance that it doesn't work out, but I would lean more towards he probably is going to try this. I think he's just going to try to be a general entertainment company and be like, I conquered pro wrestling and I sold it to, get that out of the way. And now I'm going to be like Paramount, or, I'm going to be the big movie studio thing, which statistically and historically has failed for him. So I do not think Alpha Entertainment, or whatever it is that he ends up going with, is going to be the next MGM or something. And I think any company that gets attached to it, they're going to immediately get an onslaught of, you really want to be a part of this company with Vince McMahon in charge? And yeah, there's going to be plenty of people that are going to be like, oh, obviously, yeah, that's great. And hopefully those people don't vote in the next few days. But
Well, you kind of took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say they'll probably be doing a lot of productions for Fox Nation and things of that nature. And realistically, Vince has always wanted to do this. Like, his dream has always been to get away from wrestling, even though he fails every time. So it wouldn't surprise me if he just ends up doing this. And it is just Alpha Entertainment, because he does already have that. But, I wouldn't be surprised also to see him try to do a wrestling thing and then see how that works out. But I also think he needs to first try to avoid jail again. And I'm not sure it's that easy.
Well, I mean, there's only so much to really talk about this thing, because first of all, we don't really know what the nature of the company is, and second of all, we know it's going to fail before it even starts anyway. So there's only so much you can really talk about. The only saving grace, if it was to end up being successful, is that that's probably just more money that will end up in Janelle Grant and the Ring Boys have done the suit into their coffers once they clean Vince out for whatever he's worth. But yeah, I don't know. Well, I think there's plenty of people that would sign up for this thing, because there's many people that just don't. Well, they don't even believe that the Vince McMahon stories, or they don't think that it's as big a deal as it should be. I imagine that,
or they even like him better for it. There's certainly a lot of people that are like, well, that just means he's a real man or something.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I imagine that it will end with the name like Alpha Entertainment. I imagine that this will be like as an entertainment company aimed towards the manosphere. That kind of...
Andrew Tate Hour will be on Alpha Entertainment. And
Mark Calloway will have another podcast series on it, and get Hogan involved. And I'd say there's no
Tucker Carlson tonight. Get a little talk show action.
There's no definitive thing to say that this wouldn't be wrestling associated, because I believe one of the people that's involved in it is Barry Bloom, right?
I don't know if I read that.
I don't know if Barry Bloom. It's one of the other guys that was not specifically named in the Janelle Grant lawsuit, but was was identified later on as one of the people that was kind of like involved in it.
Oh, okay.
And I think there was another person that was like a previous employee of WWE as well, in like a different capacity as well. And Kevin Dunn hasn't been added to this team yet, so
surprisingly, yeah.
But it's just a case of like, if Kevin Dunn does get added, then you start thinking, oh, okay, this must be like he's just bringing together a lot of people that have been pushed out of WWE, so you would be start to immediately assume that it must have some kind of wrestling connotation to it. But I'd be surprised if he goes down that route. I'd be surprised if he did, because I don't know who. Well, outside of, there's no one of the two companies that would jump ship to that one, I don't think, unless they were like really, really low down and were just desperate to be in a more prominent position. You can imagine people from NWA, TNA, MLW, that kind of epoch joining over if they managed to get like an actual like wrestling company off the ground with a TV attached to it. But yeah, I don't really. If it's not wrestling related, then it will fail, and even if it is wrestling related, it'll probably fail anyway. So, and he'll be dead soon. So let's move on from that discussion. That's the hope anyway.
I don't think that he would try to do a wrestling thing, in part because I think if he fails with other things, then he could just be like, well, I'm playing around, I'm trying to see where, things can go, and write it off the way that he's written off other things in the past, like the bodybuilding stuff and the XFL and all. But if he fails at wrestling, then it's almost like, okay, well, that's a bigger drop, and that's a more of like a definitive failure moment thing. Plus, I don't think he really even cares that much about wrestling anymore. So
he cares about winning.
Yeah, I think he wants to be Rupert Murdoch, and if he can get out and do, whether it is like TV show things that are like, podcasty stuff, or if it's things like he wants to try to make movies, or if he wants to try to do regular scripted TV shows or anything along those lines.
The thing, like, didn't he fail at movies twice?
Right.
Like,
but he does seem to want to make movies. And I think if he would have been able to get any of those movies to get any real traction, I think that we would have probably seen Vince being like, okay, WWE Films is going to be like an even bigger part of it and all. I think he was kind of like putting everything he could into that in the hopes that it would, and how many resources can you dedicate to that over time? But
you think he can buy back the World Wrestling Federation name?
No, I don't think so. But if he did, way to crap on the legacy even more. So I hope that isn't even a possibility. But yeah, I think we're going to get some kind of shitty entertainment company that tries to do shows like you're mentioning, like the Tucker Carlson type stuff. And, we're going to produce this type of a content that speaks to our audience, and it's a very specific niche. And I forgot we're not doing a video podcast, so what I was just doing, you were
just gesturing with your hands.
Yeah, I was just gesturing with my hands. It's a certain motion that people do in private. But yeah, it's I can't see anything great coming out of this whatsoever, other than maybe the potential downfall being pretty great to watch. So we'll see what ends up happening if anything gets announced, but I can't anticipate anything being announced until at least something settles with this lawsuit. So
I feel like if for PW Insider to put it out there, I think we could probably expect something before the end of the year.
I mean, things
that's speculation before, just in case maybe listening, that is speculation. This has all been speculation. We don't know if they're going to do MAGA news tonight on the Vince McMahon company, but, that's just the way I see things going.
I've been wrong about things like that before, so for all we know, tomorrow there could be an announcement of something, and, there's been crazier things that have happened too. Let's bounce to a completely different company now. kind of get out some opinions of this, like, kind of bare minimum side of it, because I wasn't paying the biggest amount of attention. But TNA Bound for Glory happened over the past, like, since the last hot tags. And there are, reports online with all that information. You can check out the thing I put on e-wrestling news and stuff. But I did watch a portion of this. I wasn't paying the biggest amount of attention, as I said. Like, I wasn't watching this with, my eyes glued to the screen. I was doing coverage of this and Collision at the same time while I was also watching something else, and I was talking to my wife. So it was like, across the board, 4 different things. But some of the stuff I saw was pretty decent. I enjoyed the intergender call your shot gauntlet for the little bits that I had watched of just like kind of a messy do nothing. It's funny. That person came out and did whatever. Yeah, I like battle royals, so like bare minimum. Okay. I thought it was funny that Vikingo lost the match, and then they were advertising him to be on the next episode of Impact as the new champion. And yeah, so, like, that kind of threw me off. And I was like, did I just not see the right finish of that match?
I went back and double checked the same thing, and I think I might have been more of sound mind because that was the only thing I was focused on. And I was just like, wait, did I fucking see a different match? Yeah. Like, to me, that sounds like it was a last minute decision to have him lose. And nobody told the graphics department.
Or they made both just in case, like without knowing, and they put the wrong one up, like file 2A and file 2B or something. But, no title changed hands there. No title changed hands with the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Championship. Rosemary took out Wendy Chu, though. Not a great week for Wendy Chu. She gets taken out by Rosemary, and then on NXT, she loses a casket match to Tatum Paxley. So
that was the best thing Tatum Paxley's done so far. Mm-hmm. The best thing Wendy Chu's done so far, quite frankly.
There was the Monsters Ball match. PCO retained. Santana beat Moose. Alexander beat Macklin. Masha Slamovich won the TNA Knockouts World Championship, though, and that was a match that I missed, and I was just busy doing some other stuff, and then the next thing I knew, Slamovich was holding the championship. So
that was probably the best TNA women's match of the year. That was a fantastic match, and I thought it was really well done, and I'm glad that Masha gets the belt, and they can kind of move on to Jordynne Grace era, but phenomenal match and a phenomenal cap to what was a historic title run for Grace, I thought.
And now that frees her up, and we'll talk about that when we talk about NXT. Joe Hendry did not win the TNA World title. Some interference from JBL and the whole, the Nick Nemeth routines and all. This JBL thing is very interesting because he's also like an owner now of, what is it, AAA or something?
What?
He's an owner of something now. Shit, I'm blanking on what it is. Let me double check where it is now. He's part owner of AAA.
Like legitimately, and I have to ask, with AAA? Like,
according to Fightful.com.
Of course.
Yeah. He had tweeted out, as part of the new ownership team for AAA, it's going to be a global takeover.
Okay, but it looks like it's in storyline. Okay. That's fun.
I mean, it does say he's one of the main investors. So maybe he actually does have a true financial stake in the company.
It wouldn't surprise me, but it would also be very strange. As is the whole JBL thing in general. Like, I enjoyed JBL 20 years ago. And even 20 years ago, it kind of felt like, wow, it took Bradshaw a long time to get here. Why is he popping up on every other wrestling program I watch? That I guess he won't pop up in AEW, which I know is the most thing that Callum cares about because he doesn't watch AAA or MLW or TNA. But I keep seeing JBL pop up, and I'm like, why is he playing a role in the TNA World Championship match in 2024?
I have no answer for you for that. I don't know. But he was a big part of that. And then the Hardys won the TNA tag team titles in the main event. And then, unfortunately, that does lead into some other news as well. Chris Bay injured. And the last report that I had seen was that he was at least in good spirits in the hospital and all. But it seems like that's a pretty serious injury. And even El Phantasmo, who had said that he had a cancer diagnosis, was like, send your prayers to Chris Bay. He needs it more than I do right now. So very scary ideas about all that stuff going on. What do you guys feel about all these topics?
So to kind of give my overview and just real quick, Glory, if you're going to watch anything, Speedball, Vikingo, the women's Knockouts World Title match, and I thought Full Metal Mayhem was okay. It's the best match you're going to see involving Matt and Jeff Hardy at this stage in their careers. I think they did a Hardy stage, like the whole ring was, painted like Jeff Hardy, and the ladders and tables and chairs were as well. That was a bit much, but I thought that was a great match for the talent that was in there at this stage in their careers. The Chris Bay thing is the scariest thing I've followed in wrestling in a long time, and I say this because outside of the fact that he had neck surgery and that he's in good spirits, no one's really said what happened. No one has said, anything other than, my God, this is gravely serious, and just keep him in your thoughts and prayers. And I'm just concerned for his future. I'm glad he's in good spirits. I'm glad he's on the road to recovery, but it's been painted as this very scary thing, and I hope it's not as bad as the imagination is making it out to be.
When you hear the reports going around, you can only really assume. Well, I say assume. Obviously, the main thing is everyone should be sending their thoughts to Chris Bay and hoping for as speedy a recovery as possible. But you can only assume the worst when you hear about the reports and the desire to keep injury as private as possible, which is totally within their rights to do so. But the fact that the injury happened and they had to then they ended the recording altogether then and had to reschedule a lot of stuff surrounding it as well tells that they took this seriously, and rightly so, to make sure that he was as well looked after as he possibly could be. So yeah, we can only speculate on the manner of the injury and how long he'll be out for until he decides to give any kind of information as to what happened or how long his recovery would be expected to be, if indeed that, as the hope is that he can recover and come back to being his best, because he's a young guy with a lot of potential, definitely was at the early stage of his career and pushing towards more of a breakout role. So it would suck if his career had to end prematurely like this, but it should always be aimed towards his health and well-being. So yeah, it's just really bad news all around. So just can only hope for the best from this point. But the GoFundMe has been set up for him to help with his recovery. I saw that Adam Copeland donated $10,000 towards that. So
what a great guy.
Yeah, so there's some good stuff coming out of it in regards to people showing their support for Chris Bay and making sure that he can pay his medical bills and all that stuff be covered. So that's good to see.
That's something that a lot of people don't take into account because for some reason they think that pro wrestler equals you must be rich. And it's no, that's really not the case for
90%
a vast majority of them. Yeah. There are people, John Cena's rich, and, all these top tier people are getting their, hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars per year. I'm sure Jericho's got a mansion. I'm sure that, everybody on that kind of side of things is well taken care of. But, people in NXT are working basically earn the same amount of money that they would in any other kind of a job. Like even, people that are in the, like on the TV show of NXT are maybe making, 30 grand a year or something. And we've heard reports about that stuff before. And then you factor in that's even more of a guarantee than some of these other companies. And, Chris Bay's working for TNA. I don't know how much TNA is paying for their contracts, but I'm sure it's not like, all right, well, you sign on the company and you're getting at least $75K to do nothing or something. It's not the same as what it was when other major people get signed or anything. So the idea of like, he's fine, he's a wrestler. No, he's not going to be able to do what he does to earn money. And a GoFundMe for somebody like that, and people like, was it Copeland? You said that donated 10K?
Yeah, Copeland.
Like, that is, I'm sure that alone, that one donation is like a lifesaver for them, because they also have hospital bills too and stuff. And
by the way, Copeland is a guy who had many neck problems,
and
he knows what this looks like. So
yeah. So hopefully he is able to heal up, and hopefully everything goes well with Phantasmo as well. And we also have another major injury going on with Rhea Ripley, who has a broken orbital socket. And this apparently happened during the headbutt that she had taken recently. So it's a legit injury. It's the reason why they did this angle on NXT that we can talk about. We can talk about it now. What the hell? Who cares?
they had a goddamn NXT parking lot, first of all.
Yeah. That was, I think, how I had phrased it, was something like the NXT parking lot strikes again, and this time it's Rhea Ripley or whatever. That most dangerous area, everybody talks about Satan's structure and elimination chamber and all this other kind of stuff, and it's like, no, I'd rather go in a Hell in a Cell than the NXT parking lot. But they did a thing, and again, we'll talk about this with like the bounce back around to some NXT talk, but jumping into that and then backtracking a little bit, there was a segment on this episode where Zarya had her first match. She beat Brindley Reese. I don't know why they booked her against Brindley Reese. It's kind of odd. I guess they were like, I don't know, you. And after she won that match, Fatal Influence comes out through the crowd. They are ready to like pick a fight. Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade also interrupt. And we get some backup for Zarya in Kelani Jordynne and Julia and Stephanie Vaquer, and then Jordynne Grace. So that ends up setting up a 10-woman tag team match for next week. And in a backstage segment, Jordynne Grace, Zarya ended up getting approached by Rhea Ripley. So people are memeing that and having the three of them, and it's like death by snoo snoo. And Rhea was kind of, doing the whole thing of like teasing, like, oh, eventually we're gonna fight, but in the meantime, like, go kick some ass. And then later on in the show, they had Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez walking away from the scene of with a baseball bat, them having attacked Rhea Ripley, and that's how they're gonna write her off TV for a little bit. Now, I don't know when the time frame is supposed to be for her to return, but the last thing that I had read was she's expected to be out around a month. And that is like, I mean, a broken orbital socket is something that we've seen before, where like Undertaker had his mask on, and that was, I don't necessarily think they're going to do that with Rhea Ripley, but they could. We've seen people out for a more significant amount of time. I am, of course, not a fan of this in many different ways, because I don't want Rhea Ripley to be injured at all. I was really hoping that Rhea would have just won that championship and we can move on to a new thing. So now that we're going to have to stall, and Liv Morgan's going to have to feud with somebody else in the meantime, whether it's like Natty or they're going to just redo like Lyra or something, it's all going to be a waste of time. But I'm hoping that she's returning as soon as possible and that it's not too long, because I really want to make sure that they don't reach a point where they go, oh, well, now that it's December, can we really stretch out Liv and Rhea and just do that at Mania and just stretch that out another 5 months? I don't want that to be the case. But it still sucks no matter what, even if she's out for like 2 weeks or something. And obviously Rhea Ripley, we hope that she gets better as soon as possible too. Any other thoughts you guys have on the Ripley thing?
I just think it sucks, like, because Ripley's one of those top stars who just doesn't wrestle as often, and even in doing this little physicality during another run-in, which feels like, Rhea Ripley crossing with the Judgment Day happens every week, she suffered a serious injury, and it sucks.
Yeah, I would say that the angle they did on NXT to write her off was probably the best segment of the entire Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan feud up to this point. So there's that. That actually looked like, oh, they actually beat her up, rather than just Rhea Ripley just coming out, beating up like 5 members of the Judgment Day in one go and then just walking away every single week. But I think that, yeah, the injuries, obviously, it's bad timing. And, yeah, it means that they'll have to pivot, which, sometimes can be a good thing, sometimes can be bad. She's out for a significant period of time. This gives them, like, kind of ample period to think about whether she should be, winning the Royal Rumble and getting her title opportunity that way, or whether they decide that they need to just pivot and put the title on someone else, finish off the Rhea and Liv thing without the title involved, and then just do something else with the title in the meantime. I think probably some questions now need to be raised about Rhea's injury proneness. You put it that way, because she's had. Well, again, this is partly on the booking itself and largely on the booking, but like if she doesn't wrestle a match this year, she would have had one singles match on Raw in the entirety of 2024.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's wild, dude.
Well, the only other singles match she's had have all been on pay-per-view, and then she's had like some tag team matches outside of that as well, but she's probably had like maybe a dozen matches on TV all year at most. So there's that to consider. Like she suffered a long-term injury earlier in the year, which like ruled her out from the week after WrestleMania up until SummerSlam in ring, and now she looks like she'll be suffering for another one, which might keep her out for a couple of weeks or months, even depending on the severity of it. So yeah, it's not a question of like, oh, they should start pulling it back on her or something, because clearly she's super over, and this kind of absence makes the heart grow fonder works for a lot of people, and I imagine it'll work for her as well, just keeping her off TV, especially at this point in time, because I think there was a smattering of the audience that was starting to grow a little bit tired of the fact that she was just constantly just destroying Liv and Raquel pretty much all the time.
I mean, it was the same shit all the time. Like, you're gonna, if you got a shit or get off the pot kind of moment. And
also, Rhea wasn't really like a baby face beyond just getting like a good crowd reaction at the start. It's a similar thing that happened on Raw this week with like Damien Priest beating up Dominic Mysterio. It's like, well, Dominic was the one that was getting cheered throughout that thing, because Priest just comes across like a bit of a sore loser, when it's supposed to be, he's supposed to be like, the babyface trying to get back at the heel for cheating him out of the victory, but it just makes him look, okay, he's just beating up a guy that he just lost to. And the same thing has Rhea. It's a case of, yeah, she's been screwed out of the matches with Liv Morgan, but she has just lost them, and the feud's been going on way too long, and in every segment on TV, she pretty much always ends up looking dominant over them. It's a similar thing that happened to like Bianca Belair a couple of years ago, which is kind of quelled a little bit now that she's primarily in the tag team division. But yeah, you have to push your top stars strong, but you can't make them invincible, because then you fall into the same trap that John Cena and so many other people have in the past, where you just feel like, okay, we're bored now because you're just always winning.
And they have to actually like progress the story. It can't just be 4 weeks in a row of Liv coming out and screwing over Rhea, or like having a backstage brawl or something, and then just being like, oh wow, that feud's really hot. All right, next week they're going to do the same thing. And yeah, I looked it up. Rhea Ripley wrestled 19 matches this year.
Is that counting house shows and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
And last year she wrestled 58. The year before that, 64. The year before that, 55.
So maybe this is a case of like injuries catching up with her, like the body's broken down a little bit, and so she's just a bit more would say vulnerable, but like she's just in a bad state of injuries. I'm not saying that she's long-term injury prone. It's just been a bad year for her in terms of injuries piling up at inopportune times.
I think she needs to get away from Liv Morgan. Maybe it's because
that's
happening around that,
yeah.
right?
I mean, yeah, in the same way that because Liv's injury started off the back of like a feud with Rhea Ripley as well. So,
like
so
to be clear, but Ripley injured herself here. You know, she threw the headbutt.
Yeah, but she wouldn't have been throwing the headbutt if Liv Morgan wasn't there. So
that's true.
No, look, obviously it's not Liv Morgan's fault. It's not even Rhea Ripley's fault, but it's more of a case of like, there seems to be a lot of bad omens surrounding this feud. Yeah. They both seem to be getting injured all the time when they're in and around these.
I mean, Liv Morgan didn't injure Rhea Ripley's shoulder. The wall did. Yeah, finish the feud, get these two away from each other, let them heal up a little bit.
Yeah.
The bad news here is the Raw women's division is in fucking shambles.
Yeah, they have nothing going on. Like I said, the only person that really, and it's like a stretch, the only person that they can just pivot right to right now and be like, well, we haven't done this yet, is Natalya, and I am not interested in a Liv Morgan and Natalya feud.
Thinking of it all.
Yeah, that's exactly who I was thinking of. Yeah.
As I say, they have one person, and it's fucking Io.
Yeah, it's Io Sky. Yeah, you put the title on Io Sky, and you just run her as the champion of Raw for a while.
I mean, they could with Io.
Can Kyrie not? I guess we haven't seen her carry the ball outside of NXT, but I think Kyrie could be a single star too.
I go more along the lines of just like Io's a bit more of a known commodity. She's already held the women's title going into WrestleMania last year, and also just I know it's just primarily been seeing tag team matches recently, but Io is the best wrestler they have, just belt to belt. So there's no harm in putting the belt on her and letting her do what she does.
I do want to say they do have a couple of get out of jail free scenarios. Bianca can be on Raw because she's a tag champion. And you do have Tiffany walking around with a briefcase. If you wanted to just pivot away from Morgan, you have options.
It does potentially make that match at Crown Jewel a bit more interesting if they do decide to go down that route of like Tiffany cashing in on her instead.
I mean, I would be way more interested in something like that than what I was just pitching, because I was pitching it under the idea of you got to kill time until Rhea Ripley comes back and beats Liv Morgan. And that would just be like, what do we do with Liv like for the next month and a half? And that's why I was like, well, there's just you have the Natty match and like who gives a shit, and then when
it's just
Rhea's
so weird to me
ready,
that's where your mind goes. Like, if anything, I think they would be more likely to reheat Lyra than go with Natty.
Because I look at the roster and I go, who is she already feuded with and who has she not feuded with? And then I just immediately eliminate people like Lyra and go straight to, well, she hasn't had a match with Maxine that I'm aware of, but Maxine, you'd have to build up way more than Natty. And then she hasn't had a feud with like Pure Fusion Collective, but they're heels. Okay, so I'll take them out. So I end up like narrowing the list down to be like, the simplest and easiest option is you have a battle royal, Natty wins it, and then she gets a title match in like 2 weeks or something, and then you just, whatever. But like, I don't want to see that happen at all because I wouldn't care. And it would be the type of thing that would just be a means to fill time until Rhea returns, which if it's around a month, that's not all that bad. They can like weather that storm. If it ends up being one of those things where she's out until February, then you got to start thinking about, do you really want Liv to continue to hold that championship, or do you want to switch it over to somebody else? Or do you want to actually pull the trigger on the Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan thing at WrestleMania? Then you got to fill in even more time. And then at that point, you got to start thinking about calling people up from NXT or something. Because Raw roster right now, this roster group cannot sustain 6 more months of Liv Morgan as champion.
If it's only a month, then they pivot to Damage Control because War Games, and you do Liv, Raquel, and PFC against Damage Control and insert babyface. KC and KC for all that matters if it's only a month. But I'm more so thinking of, I don't want to see them wait around just to get to another Morgan Ripley match. I would rather see them try to do something with Lyra, try to do something with, Nikki Cross, try to do something with fucking anybody rather than, no, this is the plan, so we got to sit around.
Nikki Cross I didn't bring up because I'm assuming that they're going to do Judgment Day versus Wyatt's at Mania.
I guess. I guess I don't love that idea, but I haven't loved much of anything with the Wyatt Six yet.
Yeah, I had a discussion with a friend of mine of the message I think that he sent me was, I'm so over the Wyatts or something along those lines. And I was like, you know what? I didn't even realize that over the past couple of weeks that I hadn't been watching Raw. And then over this week, what I did, that I didn't miss them at all. And I'm way over that act as well right now. But we have a couple more hot tags before we get into TV stuff. Go ahead.
Just before we move on for now, I just want to say, because we kind of brushed over the El Phantasmo cancer thing by lumping it into the Chris Bay stuff. Like, to actually, so like, obviously, that sucks for El Phantasmo.
Yeah, I mean, that's terrible. Like,
it was, and let's say he wasn't exactly being like pushed to the stars in New Japan right now, but it still means that he'll have to take the indefinite break. Hopefully he recovers soon. By his accounts, they caught it early and he'll be able to deal with it. But it's still a scary time when there's ever like a cancer diagnosis, and he's still like a young guy. So just a case of, okay, let's all get behind him as well and hope that he recovers soon.
It's one of the few like positive modern medicine things where somebody can say, oh, they found a cancerous tumor and still have the optimism to just be like, but this guy needs your prayers more, because ELP getting cancer at a young age, that was very surprising to hear. And again, times have changed. Hopefully they're able to take care of it swiftly and he'll be back before we know it. But yeah, it is super scary, and a reminder that you never know what's around the corner.
Yeah, that's among the absolute worst news you could ever hear. And still, put on my tinfoil hat, I still think that there's probably so many things that we could be doing that people just don't let you do for like, companies and stuff that are like, we don't want to treat that. And it's terrible the way that the world is. And we wish them the best with hopefully very, very soon there's some kind of an announcement of like, I'm in remission and like everything's okay or something. AEW WrestleMax is a trademark. I have no transition here, but what the hell? Let's just do it. WrestleMax is the name of that. I kind of like the name. I don't know what they're going to use it for, of course.
The first event on Max, I would have to imagine. Most
likely. That's probably what it's going to be. And that kind of already evokes a kind of like WrestleMania type of, it's WrestleMania, but you changed a few of the letters.
You took off the NIA.
Nia.
You took
Nia
off
and added X. It's a Nia Jax is going to be on it. AEW WrestleMax immediately becomes one of my absolute favorite names that they would have as pay-per-view. Like, I don't like Wrestle Dream. I don't like Dynasty. And I'm not a big fan of like Revolution and some of the other terms and stuff. I like Double or Nothing quite a bit. I like All Out. Full Gear, I'm not a big fan of. But AEW WrestleMax, cool. Sign me up. Well, as long as it's cheap.
Are they going to sign you up to Max is the question.
Yeah, but...
No, I think it's cool. Like with most of these things, I hope it's a fun logo and not just a Max logo smacked onto the word wrestle.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. And I hope that it is an actual show and not just like what they're going to call their section of Max.
Ew, I didn't think about that either.
Yeah, I think about all these things because I hate where all the whole streaming bubble is going. But yeah, I think it's a cool name for a show, and I hope it's a fun show whenever they do it.
Yeah, it'd be cool to have like that as another pay-per-view. I'm interested to see where it would fit on the calendar if it is intended to be the first Max show. Like the first pay-per-view to be streamed.
January, February, like.
Well, February, March is around about Revolution time, so maybe if they could get it around about January time, then that would be the time to do WrestleMax.
Honestly, we don't have a Royal Rumble in January, technically.
Well, in January, they are doing Wrestle Dynasty. Like,
yeah, that's true.
That is them and New Japan doing that at the start of January, so...
Hasn't stopped them from doing All In and All Out within a week, though. And if that's the very, very beginning of it, they could do it at the very end of January.
Yeah. I think it's more just a case of, like, putting more pay-per-views together is... it's a good thing in the sense that AEW pay-per-views are typically great, and so I'm sure there'll be fun shows, but it'll be more of a case of, you're now just doing a lot of pay-per-views over the course of the year. So
which is why you need to come up with a nice low price. Maybe.
Yeah. The company that's like, we're pretty good at sticking at 4 a year. And then they're like, 5 a year, but we're not going to go too crazy. We're not going to have 12. Maybe 6. 7's probably a good number.
The
7
key
or 8.
Is to say as little as possible on that front so you never look like you're putting your foot in your mouth.
And they're like, I think we're going to stick good at 8 or 9. 10's probably the limit. All right, so if we're at 11, we might as well have 12. It's kind of like that slow transition into that. But WrestleMax, TBD. We'll see where that ends up being. I
hope MJF is headlining the first one at least.
I like that. Here's another completely other related thing. It's like a trademark-ish type thing. So I guess that's your transition before we get into tag titles and stuff. WWE ID, or WWE Independent Development. It's a new program that they are launching, and this is going to be a partnership with the indie scene. They have already announced that they are partnered up with Booker T's Reality of Wrestling. Cody Rhodes is the Nightmare Factory, the Black and Brave Academy that Seth Rollins has, as well as KnokX, which is KNokX Pro Academy. That was weird to type out. And Elite Pro Wrestling Training Center. And it seems like this is essentially the NIL program, but for indie wrestlers. And there are, of course, lots of people that are saying completely different things. So their reaction, some very positive, some on the negative side. The negative seems to be, for the most part, from what I've been seeing, two front. Number one being WWE did this with the UK scene and they completely killed it. So that's what they're going to do with the indie scene and the American side of it. And number two being there's no fast track to WWE, and this is going to give people the wrong impression that they are signed with the company, and then they're not going to learn out of these things because they're going to go straight into the performance center, and they're not going to be able to get that kind of well-roundedness that they would if they were in the indies. I would counter with the idea of it doesn't seem like it's going to be as complicated as I think a lot of those people are taking it as. They're already going to take people from the indies. Anybody who's not signed to a company that is like an AEW contract or something, if WWE wants them, they're just going to give them the heads up, and then they're going to go on these training recruitment things. They're going to have people, they've had talent scouts for, popping up at whatever indie fed there is for all these years. Like that, I don't think is going to change. I look at it more as like, this is just a better ease of Booker T's Reality of Wrestling. Sure, let's give them more of our tools to succeed, and let's have a little bit better communication of, look, this guy's actually pretty good. You might want to sign him. Or this girl is somebody you really got to keep an eye on because in a couple of years she's going to be big. And these companies that they're working with, it's like, okay, it's Booker T's, Cody Rhodes's, and Seth Rollins's. All right, they're all in WWE. Are they not going to give them a heads up anyway? I don't see what the panic is all about. I think this is actually a really good thing.
Yeah, I know you don't see what the panic is about because you didn't live through what they did to the UK independent scene. They absolutely destroyed what the UK independent scene was building. I wouldn't say like it was thriving, but it was in the best position it had been in a long, long time in terms of just multiple promotions, just doing a lot of cool stuff, like a lot of talent coming through, and of course like WWE would come in and take some of that talent, but them coming in and forming NXT UK and signing up the best talent possible. And it wasn't even a point of them just signing up talent because WWE's well within their right to do that. It's more of a case of they allowed them to continue to do their independent bookings, but then kind of got wind of the fact that, oh, this person, he's part of NXT UK, so he can't be losing matches. So you've got to make sure that if you're going to booking for your show, you've got to put them over. But they might not be back, and we'll also maybe pull them from that show because we might need them for whatever reason at a moment's notice. We'll just pull them out of your show. So those independent people, indies, have to stop booking those people because they can't trust that they'll be able to appear, and they don't want to piss off fans by promising that Pete Dunne or Tyler Bates going to be on the show, but last minute they've just been pulled away to do something random for NXT UK or just to go over to the US for some reason. And so they stop booking them. The star power diminishes. The separation becomes apparent between the stars that's WWE's hoovered up for NXT UK and the people that are left behind in the UK independent scene trying to still boost things up. NXT UK dies because it's pretty much a failure in most metrics, and the UK scene is now just slowly starting to recover. The only real company that survived and did a good job throughout that entire time was RevPro, and that's because they're the only company that didn't really sign up to that type of thing. They continue to just have a loose affiliation with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and now with AEW as well. It's more of a case of, in theory, this is both a good thing and a really smart business move. It definitely is a very smart business move because it opens up the ability for WWE to start, like, I guess, I don't want to say the word grooming because that has negative connotations, but you know what I mean when I say that type of thing. Prepping people to make the transition over into WWE more clearly, to spot the top line talent from these independent promotions and other ones if they sign up later on, and just get a head start towards getting towards the company, and also give them a bit of security because there is no there's no security on the independent circuit. You're doing all the stuff. You're trying to make your own bookings. You're basically going from show to show, trying to make money, and in most cases losing money. This gives a kind of at least an air of security of, okay, WWE has identified you as as part of their ID program. They're going to sign you up to whatever that contract kind of amounts to. And so you kind of have a bit more security to do the independent thing, to travel around, to do the stuff that you want to do, to build up your character and to build up your ability in the ring, while knowing that if things still continue to go to plan, then you'll have a fast track to WWE, which is a good thing. And that'll be a good thing for those wrestlers that are signed up for it. The overarching problem is that everything that WWE does and everything WWE has ever done is anti-competitive. So they don't care if they kill the independent circuit in the US as long as they get better if they're better off at the end of it. So it's not so much a fact of like, this is a really smart really smart business move, and AEW should have done this. And they should have done this a long time ago, and they had 5 years to do it, and they didn't, and they should be kicking themselves for it. But I think that what because WWE is just focused on themselves and making them as successful as possible, they will start to do the same thing that they did in the UK. We have a blueprint to follow, which is they'll sign these people up to these ID contracts, and then you'll start to see that those people continue to tour around places, but they'll be taken off one show, moved to another one for a promotion that they're more in favour of, or having to do something in NXT or on one of their house show circuits or whatever, and then they'll then they'll say, oh, this is like a WWE person, they shouldn't be losing on this show, you got to keep putting these people over, or come up with smosh finishes to protect them. And so that's going to start compromising like the other independent bookers and what they can do, start to disrupt their freedom and ability. You'll already start to dry up which is already kind of a pretty weak independent scene at the moment in the US, because a lot of the top stars have already been signed up to places like, whether it's WWE, AEW, or kind of the tier below that in terms of TNA and MLW, NWA, that kind of area. You're kind of just left with people that just appear on GCW, and that's not exactly a very like overly stacked pool of talent.
Well, I'd like to cut in here. I'm going to share a message in the Skype chat, and I want you guys to maybe if you can identify or ID that person, because it looks like they're showing one of the first ID signings from a talent perspective. I can't tell for sure, but that looks to be Charles Mason, a New York indie guy who's done some stuff for GCW.
So the tweet there says, because I know that they, Brandon Thurston revealed that at least 5 people had already been signed up to WWE ID contracts. But the fact that they've now put this out, and that's got number 20 attached to it, so have they signed at least 20 people to these contracts already?
I would assume so.
That would be rather... Because remember, it's supposed to be like an NIL deal. It's NIL, but for like people who want to be or are already pro wrestlers. So I think that's possible. They could sign at least 20 people to a class or whatever.
I mean, I think this is also significant in the fact that I think it's not like 100% admission, but it is at least a partial admission that the performance center and the whole NIL movement has not worked out as well as they would have hoped it would have, because they've now decided to lean more towards the independent circuit again. It's not like they weren't signing people from the independent circuit, but they've now introduced this as a pathway. And fundamentally, like, you just have to look at the history and look at the numbers that the performance center has produced in terms of how many people that came directly from the performance center are now like big stars on either NXT or the roster, and you could probably count that on like 1 or 2 hands. Like, everyone always just aims towards like, when everyone says like, the performance center doesn't really create stars, they always go to Bianca Belair is the answer to that question, and you just go, okay, one in, you know, the hundreds if not thousands of people that have been through that have become like a top level star. And, you know, you can say...
Depending on if you count, like, Bliss and Charlotte and some other people that were, like, not indie wrestlers beforehand.
I don't really count people that, you know... I don't really count, like, Charlotte Flair or Bron Breakker because, you know, their family is in pro wrestling, so they could have done this at any point in time, realistically. So I don't really subscribe to that belief. I kind of just go from people that were just, you know, not involved in wrestling, then came to the performance center and are now top level stars. And yeah, you could and those people you could count on like one hand probably. I'd say Bianca's top of that, and then you're kind of scratching the surface a little bit below that. Alexa maybe, but like,
I would count Alexa.
Yeah, she was just like a cheerleader or something.
Like
Liv Morgan was a Hooters girl.
I would count people like her, Morgan, Carmella, people who didn't do the wrestling circuit.
A lot more women than men on that front.
A lot more women than men for the most part. I think it was, first of all, it was really good to get Callum's perspective from somebody who watched the UK scene, because I saw a lot of immediate outrage and just like, oh my god, this is the death of the indies. And to me, the way I read it, and now I'm thinking a little differently as I see they are signing individual wrestlers, I thought this was going to be like, hey, you know, Booker T's Reality of Wrestling and Black and Brave and all this stuff. I thought it was going to be like a system of
like a feeder
OVWs, you know, which I don't think is a bad thing, because I think you need more alternatives to just the performance center and just signing up collegiate athletes. So I'm glad to see that they're taking this route, and ultimately I want to see what the strategy is and how it's implemented before I go yay or nay. But right now, I think this has the potential to be a really good thing. And I don't think the indies should be too affected because, like, it's not like when OVW was the thing, okay, everybody's just going to try to go straight to OVW. You know, you still had people who went through the indies and then went through developmental and then maybe got on the main roster. I see it as more of a return to that kind of system as opposed to just, okay, we're going to bleed the indies dry.
Yeah, I think of it more as the NIL thing, but for indies.
But again, we won't know until we see it.
True.
Implemented.
Yeah.
But my issue with like your guys' perspective on that is like you're fine to have those perspectives, but we've seen what they did. They did to the UK defense. Like, why do you assume they're going to do anything differently? It's not like, and also it wasn't like Vince was like the spearhead of that thing. That was Triple H for NXT.
Thing, yeah.
So like I don't know why like after seeing what WWE do when they decide to get their hands on the indies and what they did to the UK things, they won't do the same thing to the US.
I think of it more so because the NXT UK thing was we're creating a whole brand for everybody. And we need to have a big influx of talent and we need to take people from a specific spot rather than how this is. I think this is going to be more of a slow drip.
Oh, yeah, and it's not a now thing. It's for people like 5-10 years down the line. But it's more of a case of I add that onto this as well. That like now this has happened and this has been announced, AEW has to respond by creating their own version of this. Because if they don't, they're going to lose a competitive edge on the independent circuit, which has kind of been their main feeder system for their talent.
Oh, totally.
So they need
if you're somebody who is like, you know, hey, I want to get booked on something. They don't even have like AEW Dark anymore. That used to be able to like be a big bonus point for them.
Ring of Honor is essentially that, and if Ring of Honor is getting a TV deal, then that might get lost as well. Like the worst, I'd say, I've always held this fact. I know people said that it was pointless, but I think that one of the worst things AEW ever did was get rid of Dark and Dark Elevation.
No, I agree. No, I completely agree.
The shows were pretty stupid, but it was really useful for a lot of things.
It identified a lot of talent. Like people like Willow Nightingale started out through those shows.
This is probably a hot take, but I prefer that to Ring of Honor in implementation because, you know, AEW Dark was its own thing and ROH just feels like a zombie promotion at the moment.
No, I'd agree with you. I like Ring of Honor presents itself as its own big thing that nobody cares about and is essentially in that NXT kind of side of it with people that you don't really put as much of an investment in. Whereas Dark, you knew what you were getting. It was like, all right, this is a way for people to get matches. It's on YouTube. It's easy to get access to. You tape stuff in advance. So if you want to watch it, you go ahead and do that. But like you do it in a different way than what Ring of Honor was. And yeah, I think that like outside of the branding positives and the fact that they could potentially get, you know, Meltzer saying that maybe there's a TV deal in the works. Other than that, Dark, I think, was kind of more successful and probably cheaper overall too.
And it was easier to access. Like you could go, hey, you know, it's Monday night. I'm gonna watch some Dark Elevation before Raw. Or, hey, I got nothing to do right now. It's Tuesday. I'm eating some dinner. Throw on Dark. Hey, oh, I like this Willow Nightingale. I like this Tesha Price, who became Fallon Henley. You know, like the stuff out there. I preferred that to what ROH is, but to your point, Callum, I agree. I do think if WWE is going to do this, AEW should respond as well and develop relationships with schools.
Yeah, and that has its own problem as well because then you're spreading the indies even thinner in terms of those two pathways. So I'd say if a person becomes good enough on the independent circuit, they are inevitably going to go to WWE or AEW eventually. So that's not going to change in this regard. It's just plucking people a lot sooner and what kind of effect that has on the, I guess, the booking or the dynamics of the independent circuit. And we don't know what that's going to look like just yet, but it is going to, I think the ramifications are going to be further than a lot of people are anticipating right now. I mean, some people obviously, I think some people that say like it's the death of the indies are maybe going a bit too far, but my mindset, as it typically is pushing to the more cynical, bad side than the positives. It'll be positive for WWE and it'll be positive for AEW if they introduce their own thing, but you don't really want to just like be cheering for the billion-dollar corporations to be successful all the time when you're trying to root for some of the smaller people to get a bit of action as well.
100%, I hear you. I do. But I also am totally cool with wiping out some of the schools that just kind of take advantage of people.
Oh yeah, none of them that like do bad things should be succeeding or thriving by any stretch of the imagination. It's more just, there's a handful of people like that. I'd say it's probably more than a handful, but that shouldn't be like, scrubbing them out of it shouldn't come at the expense of also scrubbing like dozens of other people that are just trying to run a wrestling school promotion and just trying to do things independently. But the other thing,
it's a system of balances, and yeah, I worry that the balance will never be found, but I agree with what you're saying.
It's checks and balances. It's also checks and championships.
The other thing I just want to add on top of this is that I think that this has made the reports that came out a couple of months ago about the Performance Center or like the kind of HQ thing moving to Las Vegas is more real than it's ever been.
I think like a secondary one.
No, as the only one. I think they'll close the Performance Center in Florida by. I say I don't want to put a time thing on it, but I think at least in the next 2 years that will be dead and it will all be in Las Vegas instead. Because the whole TKO thing has been about consolidation, and it's all about these. We know the reports came out and they quickly quashed them, but that doesn't mean they're not true. It just means they wanted them quashed because it may be too early for them to reveal that stuff. But I think this movement and the fact that if they are going to focus at least a bit more of their attention to the independent thing, and they've already done some stuff with NXT in the Las Vegas area. So I think that there's a very real possibility that they decide to save themselves a bit of a headache, close that Performance Center, make a new Performance Center in Las Vegas, and do that.
You hear about that by WrestleMania when Mania's in Vegas?
So there could be a chance for that.
I'm anticipating that when we come to Vegas for Mania, as if any of us are going, not only because the fucking price, it's ridiculous, but we're not in the company. I think that they're going to just announce a secondary Performance Center, but I guess we're going to figure that out too. Yeah, like with any of this stuff, we're not going to know exactly how this is going to play out until it starts to be more of a thing. Even that idea of the picture of the person's eyes, I didn't even see that. So if they're teasing whoever that is, I couldn't tell you, it's an indie person. So, I think that there are a lot of positives that can come out of this. And then, of course, there's always potential for negatives. But we're going to have to see. I think that this is going to be more fruitful than the NIL thing, though, for sure. Because there's been, 3 people in the entirety of the NIL for years that have done anything.
Kalani Jordan is one of them.
Kalani's in NIL?
Yeah.
Really? Huh.
Yeah.
I was thinking, Obafemi was one.
That's 2 NIL people that have won championships this year, Tony. God, your prediction at the start of this year is really bad.
Yeah.
What's happening with those Cavender twins? They made a big deal about them.
They just fuck around and refuse to stop playing basketball to the point where I think even some people are starting to question how the fuck are you still playing college ball? Like, you've done this 8 years in a row. What are you doing? And they're just we're making money.
I mean, this is the benefit of doing one where a feeder system which comes through the independent circuit, because those people want to be wrestlers, whereas the NIL thing is people that failed at being athletes.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I'm in favor of what they're doing here.
And then you got those people that they probably not only just want to be wrestlers, but they have some seasoning already. So they're going to know not the system of WWE necessarily, but they're going to have taken bumps, and they're going to have figured out some little things here and there and some big things. And, you can kind of not necessarily skip a lot of steps, but you can skip some for sure. And Same as you would have signed anybody else on the indies. Like we've said, like, you know, if you find like a Megan Bain, for instance, you know, she's not going to need to go through this system to get into WWE if they're interested. They would have just had her in one of those tryout things and they would have liked what they had seen or not liked it and then offered her a contract or not. But the thing like, you know, the Nightmare Factory or Black and Brave or anything, I think that having something like pen to paper, an agreement with the company might make the transition a little bit easier, like the legal front too, that we might not be paying too much attention to because we wouldn't know all those details anyway. Maybe that's a big factor of this too. Maybe it's like, okay, if you sign with that, then you can kind of have like a first look deal and stop them from going to another company. And, you know, that's a good business idea too. I don't know anybody from any of these companies that should be like, wow, they should definitely sign this person, but I'm sure that there's plenty that are really good. So if anybody knows, drop a comment. You know, if there's somebody on like Reality Wrestling that's great or whatever.
I fully Promise Braxton to be signed real quick.
Who?
Promise Braxton. She's a standout of the Reality Wrestling women's division. I expect her to be in WWE within a couple of years. If then, that's probably pushing it. That's at least one name that sticks out. I know that Nathan Fraser came from Seth's school. I don't know any of the standouts that are there, but I think this is going to be overall good, especially at the start of it. Because if there is bad, we won't see it until later.
Let's move on to some TV talk and kind of wrap around some of those other topics that we touched on a little bit here and there. One of them being going back to last week's SmackDown, and then, you know, naturally, if you don't want to know what happens on this week's SmackDown, we already told you what the spoilers were and all that anyway. But the setup for the whole SmackDown thing, I was surprised at how that episode went down. I did not anticipate that we would end up getting Motor City Machine Guns in particular. You know, a lot of this stuff we don't need to talk about. And Naomi beats Candice LeRae. Who gives a shit? You know, LA Knight. We already talked about the whole thing. Win
for a week. I want to. Yeah. Damn it! She won something.
I like Candice. I want her to do more, but they like it really doesn't matter in the grand scheme. They're just throwing her in there with Nia Jax, and you know we already talked about the LA Knight stuff and all. But what really shocked me was Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley win their number one contender spot, and they immediately go into, let's have the tag match now, and they win the tag team titles. That was a shocker to me.
That was awesome.
I, first off, did not anticipate the tag match would happen right then anyway. And then when that started, I was like, oh, okay, well, then they're just going to have the Bloodline retain, and it's going to be like, oh, boo, you fucking assholes for taking advantage of this, and yeah, Motor City Machine Guns deserve a rematch, that kind of thing. And when the titles changed hands, I was busy doing other stuff, and I was just like, you know, I'll come around to it. I'm like, oh, fuck, they won? Like, now I gotta go jump on there and do this, but that's cool. And, yeah, I mean, we're gonna get some of the fallout of that on tonight's episode, which seems like it's, you know, mostly just build to Crown Jewel, and they're probably gonna have some, like, Halloween segments or something, but, yeah, Motor City Machine Guns are the tag team champions.
I think it's fantastic. And it's really fun for me to see them not only getting their flowers, but to see them so overcome with emotion about reaching the WWE landscape and being able to just say, hey, you know, all the 20 years that we put in the industry was worth it. Like, we're finally here and, you know, getting the recognition on the grandest stage. It's been nothing but a huge positive for me, and it's my favorite thing in all of WWE right now.
Yeah, it's definitely a cool moment and a good way of putting over a team that is, you know, new to a lot of WWE audience, but obviously what hardened wrestling fans know very well. To see them win the tag team titles just pretty much in their second show, their third match ever. So, you know, it's a real kind of shot in the arm moment. It fed into the grander Bloodline story of having Jey Uso help cost the Bloodline the title. So it feeds into that narrative as well. It means the tag team division's kind of freed out from the Bloodline story, so they can do other things instead. I'm like 1,000% convinced this was supposed to be the Lucha Brothers.
I didn't even think about that.
Okay, he's probably right.
Because the reports until we started to see clips of previewing Mostly Machine Guns appearing on SmackDown, the whole reports were all circulating they were going to go to NXT. So I think the idea is those of us who go to NXT, the Lucha Brothers would go straight to the main roster. Lucha Brothers would do this segment, and you know, Mostly Machine Guns would do some cool things in NXT, or maybe eventually getting called up, but because Phoenix won't be available for a while. Now they've decided to switch up with the Mostly Machine Guns. It doesn't make the moment any less impactful or special, but it's more of a case of, I see what they're probably doing here, but it's good for them. They've capitalized on this very well. So
yeah, and can I just say that it is cooler that it's the Machine Guns, because I love the Lucha Brothers, but the Machine Guns are such a storied team, and who would have thought just a year ago? How crazy does the sentence sound of Roman Reigns and the Usos helped Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin beat the Gorillas of Destiny for the WWE Tag Titles? Like, that doesn't even feel like it's a thing we could have dreamed of a year ago. And that's the kind of fun stuff I like in wrestling, and it doesn't, hand wave away a lot of the bad storytelling. But when you get these moments of like, this is so cool because it feels like fantasy booking happening in real life, I'm a sucker for that.
Yeah, I liked the surprise of it. I like that the Motor City Machine Guns are now the tag team champions, because that's something that I was kind of like already nervous about was, hey, if they go to SmackDown, and I was firmly in the idea of, all right, Bloodline's going to keep those belts until Mania. They're going to lose it to the Usos and that kind of thing. So any team like a Lucha Bros or Motor City Machine Guns are going to be stuck on a brand that they can't win the tag team titles. They should have gone to Raw. Well, now that they're doing this, it's like, okay, well, then maybe not. Maybe we're not going to have that be the case. They could still lose the titles back to the Bloodline, and then they could kind of reset on that front. But at least in the meantime, they get to cross that off their list, and I think that that's a good way for them to come into the company and have momentum too, instead of being the type of thing that happens here and there where somebody comes in, it's a big deal, they get a title match pretty fast, and then they lose, and then what do we do with them now? Happens a lot in AEW, but it's happened in WWE quite a bit too. Like Julia already is like, okay, she lost that match against Roxanne, and now Stephanie Vaquero's there, and Zaria's there, and Zaria's seemingly going for a different belt, but like you can't give the belt to both Julia and Stephanie Vaquero, so somewhere along the lines you got to pick. And I like that Sabin and Shelley are able to be these tag team champions now. So I don't know who the hell is going to be the next champions. I'm sticking with my idea that it's probably just going to go back to the Bloodline, but they could have a plan for something else going forward. Maybe the Bloodline is out of the tag title hunt because they want to do other stuff for them in the next few months, and maybe the tag titles are just going to be a bunch of teams like DIY and All Mania. I don't know.
I would love for, without knowing anything, of course, I would love for the tag team title match to just eventually be straight up tag match, Usos, Motor City, give them like 20, 25 minutes, and just put on a tag team classic.
I'd be down for that. Yeah. There's good options that are all around. So tonight's episode of SmackDown, we already know most of it. There's no real means to talk about that for that, but let's backtrack to Monday Night Raw, and let's talk about any of the other stuff that we didn't really touch on from any of the stuff throughout the week. We did mention some stuff heading into Crown Jewel, so that kind of takes a lot of that out of there. War Raiders beat LWO and New Day to become number one contenders for the tag titles there, and they could very well end up being those next champions. I'd be 100% down for that. whole Dominic Mysterio thing, kind of touched on that a little bit. Is there anything else that's happened on Raw that's worth talking about? I'm blanking on anything that we didn't already mention. Oh, I thought it was really funny that Seth Rollins had on that blue jacket and took it off to reveal another one.
Reveal a blue jacket.
Yeah, I thought that was great. It's like Inception of these.
I thought that segment was fun. Dom getting a strong win, I'm a big fan of, because I want him to eventually have a small run with the mid-card title. I did think it was weird that, unless I missed him, they had advertised Breaker night of, and then he just wasn't there. So I don't know if that's like an injury thing or what.
I can't recall anything he did.
But yeah,
a hell of a week. I don't remember a lot from this week.
But yeah, I think we covered most of Raw.
And on the NXT side of it, there are some stuff that we obviously just touched upon a little bit earlier, but Tina Paxley beats Wendy Chu in the casket match.
I'll say it again, great match. That was a lot of fun. If it's the best thing they do, I think it was more than anybody could have expected from them when they were on like Level Up and stuff like that. So that was fun to watch.
We got confirmation that it is going to be Bubba Ray Dudley and Trick Williams against Ethan Page and Rich Holland next week.
Why? I want to know why. Look, I wasn't on the show last week. I was dealing with other stuff. But I watched Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling both nights. And I want to know why we're doing this. Why is Bubba Ray Dudley, Bully Ray having a resurgence here? I know that they're doing it for ECW. I know why. But it's like there's so many other ECW people. You couldn't get... I'd rather see Dreamer wrestle in the ECW arena than see Bubba Ray main event in NXT. It's kind of like JBL and TNA. Why are we doing this in 2024? What are we doing?
Rob Van Dam's also going to be on there, and they didn't say what he's going to do yet. Ava had said, we'll figure something out, and then later on in the night, he stood between Javon Evans and Wesley and was like, oh, I've got an idea. See you next week. So I don't know if it's going to be...
I'm hoping it's a three-way.
It could be.
I don't want RVD wasted as a ref.
I really am hoping that that's not the case. Yeah, I don't want to see Javon Evans versus Wesley with RVD as the special guest referee just as a means to throw him in the middle of the two. I'd rather him actually wrestle one of them. Even if
they've already got a match with a special referee, haven't they?
I think that they did, right? It was Dawn Marie.
Dawn Marie, for the Lola Vice Jada Parker match. So.
Which makes perfect sense as well. That Dawn Marie is involved in this feud, but okay. They also teased Nunzio is going to be there.
Which, okay, that's fun. Like, if you're going to do it.
Yeah, like, all right. So he's going to be, Tony D is going to beat the shit out of Nunzio, I'm hoping. But I like the idea, too, that it's like, that he would be a part of the same kind of family network. Okay, I buy it. And whoever Silvio is. Yeah.
You know, it was a really fun setup. They seem to be leaning into the ECW heavy stuff. I know he's not on TV, but feels like Heyman needs to make an appearance.
That'd be cool.
He'll do the video.
He'll at least do the opening. Yeah. That's gonna be a lot of fun. Of course, it is going head to head with Dynamite, so they're trying their best to kind of load it up.
Yeah.
It's a little hard to say that when you're leading with Bubba Ray, but they're trying, and I'm excited for it. It'll be a fun show, especially if we get RVD versus Wesley versus Javon Evans. That'll be a lot of fun.
I'm not excited about the whole who won the ratings war type of thing. It's like, all right, if WWE wins, I don't fucking care. If AEW wins, I don't fucking care. Like, it doesn't matter.
I am so checked out with like online shit. I couldn't care less.
But you know that so many people are going to make a big fuss over it, one way or another.
But like, I don't fucking care about them.
All those people don't matter. But I think like the more interesting thing, if you could even call it that, is that I think there's at least a solid 30-40% chance that Bully Ray turns on Trick Williams either at the end of the match or during the match, and that's your main event for the next NXT show.
It could very well happen.
Tony, Callum, what are you doing?
Well, let's say the alternative, Rob, to that is that the main event of the next show is Trick Williams versus Ridge Holland.
I don't want that either.
Yeah.
Listen, NXT is like one booking decision away from being better off as an all-women's show. All right.
That's actually what I was about to say. Is that I saw that like Ibu from like Pure Wrestling was basically saying, yeah, NXT should just be an all-women show because the women are way more over as a collective than any of the men are on that show. It's literally just Trick Williams, Oba Femi, and then just a bunch of guys. And then on the other side, at least the women have like characters and have got more interests surrounding them.
I mean, honestly, that roster right now, especially when you throw in, Jordynne Grace on loan from TNA and all that, they're more over than some of the main roster girls. That's why when, Rhea Ripley showed up, people popped because it was like, oh, Rhea Ripley's in a segment with Stephanie McCare and Julia and Jordynne Grace and Zarya. Like,
it's gotta make you feel so bad when you're the few people that pop up at NXT and don't get that pop. Because it's like, Natty comes in and it's people go like, oh my god, Natty's here, and like they'll throw like a Tegan Knox and they're like, Tegan, this is the best thing that's ever happened, and then like Ashanti comes in, people are like, oh yeah.
I was gonna say, I was putting Natalia as one of the people that goes in and gets no reaction.
She's gotten less and less, but when she first popped up like a year or two ago or whatever with the Roxanne thing,
come home.
Yeah, they give her a big pop with the Roxanne thing. Now they're over it, but yeah, it's like, oh man, Otis is here and Akira Tozawa. Fuck yeah. Oh, Shanti's on the card. Cool. It's Christian. At least Todd Grisham. We didn't talk about that. I think that was when I was gone.
Oh, I think I talked about it because I was like, I don't know if I can fully believe that because that's so silly. Like, does your desire to rib Christian go that deep that you're just like, listen, you make this motherfucker seem like the most average man on planet Earth.
Like, what's Vince got against Christian so goddamn much? Hey, like, sneeze in front of him one time?
He always thought Christian was ugly.
Well, maybe Christian picked up on his daddy issues. You ever think about that?
I hear your father is dead. And I hear you wish your son was dead too.
I completely lost track of where we were. Oh, speaking of father issues, there you go. That's a transition.
Okay.
Charlie Dempsey retained the NXT Heritage Cup over Alexis King with a 2-0 decision, with King just being a complete fucking loser in the match and then refusing to use the brass knuckles that William Regal offered him, which I don't know where they're going with this, but that was not exactly how I anticipated that this would go. So I'm intrigued, at least in the sense of, I don't know what the fuck they're doing. Because I was assuming that Regal was just going to turn on King. Because the way that he had said, like, there's going to be a time for you to thank me. And I was like, oh, okay. So he's going to, like, turn on King and be like, yeah, motherfucker, of course I wasn't going to be in your corner for you to beat my kid. I taught you a really important lesson. Don't trust anybody and be a heel, you jackass. And instead it was just like, nah, beat up my kid. Ah, you fucking loser. So I don't know what's happening here. It's not the thing I would have booked for Alexis King, but I'm curious.
I don't know where they're going. I'm just glad that they're like moving away from, hey, isn't it funny how Alexis King looks like a fucking dumbass? At least they're trying something where he's just, I don't want to be the loose cannon. And Charlie Dempsey's getting better by the week. I want them to put Tavion Heights in better scenarios. But I'm still loving No Quarter Catch Crew.
What's the equivalent that Lexus King can have for Flying Brian?
Loser Lexus?
No, I mean like some kind of high-flying thing. Even though he's not high-flying.
No.
Is there a word?
It should just be Loser Lexus still. I'd try that.
He'll leap in Lexus.
Leap in Lexus.
It's just so stupid to go out the whole thing about, because the whole story is like he doesn't want to be his father, and yet he's the one that's bringing up his father's name in every single conversation that he has.
True.
Have you never been around people with daddy issues?
What about calling Vince McMahon Jr.?
Yeah.
Kalani Jordynne beat Nikita Lyons. That led to Adriana Rizzo attacking Lyons. So we got the heel turn for Nikita. Sure. Why not? They didn't really continue on the Obafemi thing. So I don't know if they already ditched that or if they just like gave that a week break.
There were rumors that he was getting called up and then like Fightful pretty quickly shut that down. I probably just move him up. You know, he's got some presence.
Obafemi could come up to the main roster right now and do exactly what he's doing, and I would buy it.
And be fine, yeah. He'll be fine.
And he could also just win the title from Trick Williams at some point, and I'd buy it. You know?
Yeah.
Like, whatever they want to do.
Be better than Ridge Holland or Bubba Ray Dudley.
That's for sure. And it seems like Axiom and Nathan Fraser, or at least Fraser, might be heading more towards that heel turn because when they retained their tag titles over Cedric Alexander and Javon Evans, Fraser was doing the whole like, boo-hoo kind of thing for the crowd that was booing. We'll see if that leads to
that was a fantastic
turn.
Match, by the way. That was a great match. Javon and Cedric against Fraxium. Really fun stuff. I wish there was an ECW tag team that they could take on next week.
You gotta bring back Devon?
No.
Yeah, let's have Bubba do double duty on the show instead.
What's Spike up to? You throw Spike in there instead.
Probably just being a well-adjusted member of society.
Maybe, yeah.
He's in real estate now, isn't he?
I mean, I would assume most people end up being in real estate. Apparently, Sylvester Turkai is in real estate too.
By the way, listen, we'll never get to have a reason to bring this up, but I know over the past week, Tucker Knight announced his retirement. Any memories of Tucker?
Yeah, Tucky.
Come here.
that's my memory. Good for him if he decided to just move on to something else and if he's happy with whatever he's doing.
Yeah. Remember that time that he destroyed his entire wrestling career when he turned on Otis?
Yeah, it was his fault, not Vince.
Realistically, that was his retirement. So,
I mean, he went nowhere at that point. It was pretty obvious that wasn't going to work, and I don't know why they even bothered to pretend like it wasn't. They should have just, skipped to the end.
By the way, Spike Dudley works as a financial transition specialist, so good for Spike. As I said, being a well-adjusted member of society.
I just can't imagine being in that kind of a scenario. Like, and I know that obviously it's just a job to some people, and eventually people move on and they get other jobs and stuff. But like, to be like, oh, my Spanish teacher is Tito Santana, or like, I'm gonna get financial advice from Spike Dudley and have him be like, well, you should really think about investing in this kind of thing, or you should switch your bank account to this or something. And I'll be like, what was it like getting thrown through tables?
or like, my principal is Muhammad Hassan. Like, what is
right? And it's like
it's pretty funny.
I speak from the perspective of that I mentioned before, my gym coach being the brother of King Kong Bundy. So it's like I do have a tangential, thing when it comes to that, but like it still was his brother. So it was like, Mr. Pally's. Okay, his brother is a wrestler. But if King Kong Bundy would have came in and, been like hanging around my fucking gym class when I'm 5 years old, I would have been like, yo, what the fuck is this? What's happening? But yeah, it's just weird scenarios. Let's round things out with them. AEW Dynamite, the Fright Night Dynamite special, which had some pretty interesting things to happen on there. Orange Cassidy started off the show with a promo that was kind of similar to what he's done before in the past, but this was I don't really want to be a guy that comes out and talks and tells you what he's going to do and tells you that he's a leader, because I'm not that type of guy. But you know what? Fuck Jon Moxley. I'm going to cut off the snake's head, and I still don't need a catchphrase. And I thought it was a really good promo.
Yeah, it was like what you needed from Orange Cassidy. He's not going to come out and do like the big bombastic, super emotional promo, but from his standards, that was like as emotional as you're going to get. And that's just his gimmick. And he's going to fight Moxley for the title at Full Gear. They've had great matches together in the past, so I'm looking forward to this very much. Agreed.
It should be a really good match. I wish I had more faith that he could win the title.
Yeah, I wish that this was a scenario where, I mean, I like if it's going to build to Darby Allin, then that's what you build toward, and some people just have to be sacrificial lambs. But I do want Orange Cassidy to win that at some point. I think he deserves it.
I think it's good to put Orange Cassidy out here first because he's not going to win it first time out against Moxley, but he's someone that you can go back to if they decide to like use this as an opportunity to maybe, make an example of Orange in terms of he can't hang with this level of Moxley. So you spend the next few months then building him back up to challenge Moxley again at some point. If you want to go down that route and make him the champion instead of Darby.
And we had the Adam Cole Buddy Matthews match. Cole comes out on top, sets up Malachi Black against Adam Cole for next week. So that should be fun. We've seen it before. I don't know if it's going to be as good as it was in the past, but it's something.
Fun thing was the only time I can remember them fighting is NXT Takeover, when Takeover and NXT were in Philadelphia. So nice little parallels there.
With the probably the first time I'd ever seen the suplex onto the folded table, onto the top of the table. Oh, not table, the chairs, the folded up chairs.
The back of the chair, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, oh yeah, why do people do that? That one looks like it hurts just way too much for something that doesn't look as cool as if the chair just explodes and you just land flat onto it instead. But I thought this was a bit of a thumbs down match for me. I think that it was way too melodramatic, especially considering the fact that you had the Private Party and Young Bucks match later on, which was going to lean very much into the melodrama and the late kickouts and all that stuff. I don't think this match needed to be as over the top in terms of Adam Cole selling his injury and maybe getting and teasing being taken away by the doctors and all that stuff. And the kick out one from like a stomp, it's just like just have a match, Adam Cole falls into this trap a lot of just being too much for his own good.
Baby. That's the response. Yeah. I'll buy more into the Adam Cole hype of like this is going to be where everything turns around after a few months if he doesn't get injured. I'll put it that way. I hate to be in that position, but yeah.
I think at least we can tell where the story's going because he'll fight Malachi Black and he'll beat him next week, and then the final match they'll have will be when he's 2-0 and Roderick Strong's 2-0, and they'll face each other.
That makes the most sense.
They didn't reference the Roddy part of it on Wednesday, though. I wonder if they just decided to drop that.
They had a backstage segment where, he was in the trainer's room and
Roddy was there, but it wasn't like Roddy wasn't like.
Yeah, I might get the 3 wins first or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I still want it to ultimately be just team up Cole and Roddy and Kyle O'Reilly and,
They are showing Kyle a lot during these segments.
But a team, group, or a troupe, I was just about to say, that seems to be on odds is Mark Davis returned and was not fully on board with what Kyle Fletcher's been doing.
Which is the right move.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, that's our boy. Why'd you turn on our boy? I agree with that.
And Fletcher is at a point that I think if you just team him back up with Davis, it hurts him.
Yeah, you need to build him up as a singles guy, and he's going to get some wins against lower end people, and this is an opportunity to have him, Mark Davis come back and at least try to appeal to him a little bit, but then just turn on him as well. You can have a good match with him. They know each other really well, so they should have good chemistry, and that can help set up the match with. That could be a nice stopgap for the match at Full Gear between Fletcher and Ospreay. So
that's somebody that Fletcher can beat. It's somebody who has a personal connection. It gives Ospreay an ally, which he doesn't really have a whole lot of right now in that kind of specific side of things. So yeah, I think it's the right call. They did a whole other thing with BCC and Orange Cassidy and all. Mostly led down the big thing being Darby Allin coming down from the rafters. I wasn't as big on this as a lot of other people were, to be honest. I thought that this was kind of a little bit odd. Especially for it to lead into the tag title match.
I kind of like the chaos of all of this because the whole thing they decided to push was the fact of Wheeler Yuta they decided to use him as bait pretty much. And it didn't seem like he was in on it. It just felt like, oh, they're going to use him as bait and he's just going to almost not willingly, but like he's going to get sacrificed for this. Ospreay comes out to save him. And then because you were so brainwashed by this greater good and this the cause that they're fighting for, he then just snaps back into action and attacks Cassidy instead, and then you have more of the brawl, you have more of the front line coming out to deal with things which Private Party is part of, and so the Young Bucks try and take advantage of that by saying, oh, you're already here and you're already a bit more amped up and like tired after the getting involved in this brawling, so we're just gonna have our match now when you're less prepared to do so. So yeah, I think it'll work together.
Who's better, Tyler Bate or Yuta Bate?
It took me a minute to get that. Okay. Move on.
You miss these on the hot tags when I wasn't on it 2 weeks. Well, Private Party became the new World Tag Team Champions. I did not think this was where they were going to go with it, so I was surprised about that. But they not only won those belts, but they are sticking together as a tag team, obviously. And then the Young Bucks afterward were like, yeah, peace out. Fuck this place. We're going to work from home now.
They shredded paperwork and then said, nah, we're going to work from home. We don't really want to deal with this whole BCC thing. And then Brandon Cutler got his hand smashed by a hammer. First of all, I gotta say, great match. Loved the result. I have issues with the fact that it still felt a little quick for Private Party. I'm not saying that I didn't want to see them win, because I absolutely did. It just like, it went from, okay, Private Party can only wrestle ever on Rampage, and now they're the tag champions. But I'm glad they are, because they should have been tag champions years ago. The Bucks thing feels like it's being a little accelerated, because not only did they do all that, but they respectfully handed Private Party the titles and were like, good job, guys. And then they went to go shred papers. So it feels like they're fast-tracking them to turning babyface so that, you know, whenever Omega's ready, they can start to do the elite again.
Which is just kind of a way to be like, yeah, it didn't work anyway, let's move on to the idea that's the complete opposite.
Yeah, I mean, by all reports, they're going to be off TV for a while off the back of this, so I don't expect we see them back until the new year, probably. So yeah, as I say, this was a good way to write them off. This was like a great match, and Rob is right. They rushed the Private Party push too much, and they didn't give them enough of a background before getting this win. But you know, at least they followed through on it, and they'll be champions now. And so it'll be one of those situations where they need to kind of rise up as champions, as opposed to being built up kind of properly for the title in the first place. So we'll see how they do. And yeah, the Bucks leaving is probably for the best, because there's a new kind of big bad group in the, well, technically there's probably 2 or 3 big bad groups now that are in the company, and so there isn't really place for the elite storyline, which just turned out to be quite a bit of a dud. So
after that, there was the learning tree thing. Kind of wrap that up with Mark Briscoe. They're gonna have a match that's Fight Without Honor next week, 6-man tag. I just want this kind of feud to just end, to be honest.
I'm curious as to what Jericho does with ROH, and I just hope that it leads to something good for this brand, which is an absolute slog every Thursday night.
Yeah, there's not much to it. There's not much to it in terms of, I kind of feel like this may just be just another thing for Jericho to do in the same way the FTW title was. But yeah, we'll see. He'll have a match with Tomohiro Ishii, which will be good. But and then I'm still hoping that the match is the final battle match with Samoa Joe, but still haven't seen hide nor hair of Samoa Joe since his injury, so we'll have to wait and see what happens on that front. But yeah, and then if there's any sort of whisperings about the TV deal coming to fruition, then we'll see if that follows through.
I saw a thing. I don't remember who it was, so can't give you a shout out. Sorry, but it was like this person asking somebody to identify pro wrestlers, and it was like a towel or a sock or something, I forget, but it had like Undertaker on there and Kurt Angle and whatnot, and the person pointed to Undertaker and said Sting, pointed to Matt Hardy and said that's PJ Collins, and pointed to Kurt Angle and said that's not Samosa Joe, is it?
Not
And
Samosa Joe.
And now when you just said Samoa Joe, it's just like, it's Samosa Joe. It's gonna be stuck in my fucking head. Chris Statlander to beat Camille. Yeah, okay, whatever. Mercedes. Blah, blah.
Another Rush thing though.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't Mercedes just get with Camille? Why is she already like, get to the back right now? I mean,
she's been with Camille since before the Britt Baker match.
Yeah, I guess maybe
it's been about 4 months or so.
That's insane. Wow. Okay, I guess I can't argue that, but I still feel like it's a bit early to start sowing the seeds for a breakup.
I think that's just the initial thing. I mean, they started sowing the seeds for like MJF and Wardlow to break up like weeks into their union, and that lasted like 3 years. So.
And they never should have. Like,
so I don't think it's like immediately pointing to that going to be ending anytime soon. I think it's just a case of like you build up Statlander by having her beat Camille, who's undefeated at that point, and then she's going to have the match with Monet at Full Gear, which should be a great match because the people involved.
To
that. Last thing we got was Swerve Strickland taking out Shelton Benjamin, only to be taken out himself by Bobby Lashley, who we all saw coming from a mile away, so it's not all that like, wow, oh my God, Bobby Lashley's here. But yeah, we got confirmation for it. He's officially now in there. He's part of the Hurt Syndicate. Cool.
Yeah. Strong segment. I know the debut already got over like 1 million views on YouTube or whatever. This is a very well built episode of Dynamite. It was nice to see Private Party in a top spot. Nice to see, Shelton getting the rare main event of a show. I enjoyed a lot of things. There's some things I'd like to see get a little bit more spotlight, like, Hangman Page and Jay White. I wish that would turn into more of a blood feud like you're seeing with some of the other stuff on the show. But overall, strong episode.
Yeah, I thought the end segment was really good. I thought the match was great between Swerve and Shelton. Shelton's been fantastic since he's come into AEW, and Bobby Lashley turning up and getting a great reaction, having a great look to him, then just taking out Strickland and Nana, and then taking out security as well, and standing tall, seeming like they're actually pretty like emotional about it, because like, I don't know if you're aware of it, but this is the first time that the Hurt Syndicate or Hurt Business have ever been in front of fans.
No.
Because
they never got to be in front of fans.
They'd broken up by the time that
really
the pandemic.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
Because they were broken up by the time Bobby Lashley went into WrestleMania as champion, and obviously that was still.
That's why
that was the first show that took place in front of fans before the.
Wow.
That's why they made such a big deal about wanting to be back together, because they were like, we never got to do this in front of people.
Yeah, you could tell that MVP was quite emotional about him being able to say, guess who's back in business, and the crowd getting along with it as well. Yeah, this is great. This is obviously going to be Swerve versus Lashley at Full Gear. They're already like pairing them up with like one of the top guys in AEW, which is a great thing to have. And yeah, AEW is now, like, after just going through the Elite thing, which really didn't work, they've now established like these 3 big heel factions in. I don't want to call them BTC anymore, because I'm hearing the name that's going around now is the Death Riders. So I think that's then going to be their new faction name.
I hope they think it's something better.
Well, Death Riders is Moxley's.
It's Moxley's thing
in New
with
Japan,
an S.
So. Yeah. But yes, Death Riders, and then you've got the Don Callis family, and now you've got the Hurt Syndicate. So like you built up these like 3 pretty strong heel factions that are going to split out the babyface as well. So I mean, I always think that AEW works best when it's faction heavy.
You got the learning tree and you got the patriarchy.
they're kind of like in the lower, the tier just below that. I think these 3 acts are kind of the main event ones.
For now, until Christian wins that world title.
I don't think any group with Kip Sabian in it can be seen as like main event here.
Okay, that's fair. Just listen, that's fair. Like, no, but I am really enjoying where AEW is going. Like, I like that a lot of people are coming back from injury, so hopefully the strength of the roster can really shine again. You know, I'm sure we're close to a Copeland return.
Omega's coming back soon because he's appearing in he's going to be a guest at the New Japan Power Struggle show soon.
Omega's really close to being healthy. Ibushi's close to coming back to AEW. So there's a lot to look forward to. And that, I think, is the best thing heading into a new year where all eyes will be on wrestling because it'll be, Rumble and Mania season.
Already skipping to that.
It's November. I think you can.
Technically, it's November 1st, yeah. And it's too fucking hot out for November.
Oh, this isn't a wrestling hot tag, but Mount Fiji doesn't have snow for the first time in 130 years.
Yeah, it's almost like there's a thing going around that warms the globe.
It's almost like the climate is changing. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
They clearly holidayed in the same place that Donald Trump did, considering how orange his face is these days.
Well, we hope that we have a lot of great hot tags to talk about next week, and we have a lot of great news of a lot of things that happened prior to the hot tags, on a lot of different things. The next thing that you're going to be hearing from us, though, of course, is going to be tomorrow when we have the Crown Jewel post show after the pay-per-view, which, of course, will have the live coverage of Crown Jewel during the pay-per-view. Remember, it starts with the pre-show at 11 in the morning Eastern, and it's going to be a 2-hour waste of time until they get into the actual show at 1 o'clock. So I'll be watching from 11 onward and wasting that 2 hours. That'll be fun. But we'll talk about what happens there. We'll round out anything else that happens over the course of the next few days and stuff, and talk about things in the hot tags next time around. But in the meantime, make sure you are popping up on fanboysanonymous.com. Make sure that you are checking out the Discord server. Make sure you're hitting up all the different marketplace stuff we mentioned, and make sure that you're going to the link tree at amangotree.com and just following all those different accounts you could see there. Pretty self-explanatory. They all have the links labeled of what they are, so click around and follow me at Tony Mango.
Yep, you can follow me everywhere at Dude Felice, and you can check out my writing on Fightful.com, and you can also check out what Cal has going on.
You can find me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. Check out the Power Rankings over on smark.moment.com every Saturday, where I rank the WWE superstars based on their previous week's performances. And while you're there, you can head on over to the Fantasy League, also at WWEFantasyLeague.com, to see how our rosters are doing, because Crown Jewel will be there'll be some big points being scored on that show, and also, depending on how our predictions go, impacts how our teams and rosters look like in the month ahead towards Survivor Series.
Alrighty, everyone, that's going to do us in for episode 674. As always, thank you for tuning in, and thank you in advance for the next time we see you around. But for now, this has been another Smark Out moment, and we are being counted out.